WKXX is live for the fastest 2 hours in sports talk radio. Get ready for Chase Robinson.
He has got to be a player they can rely on in big situations.
And Gerhard Mathangani.
Has the trust of his team. Sounds like the makeup of his team is in a really good space, and I believe that's because of the culture he's curated down there.
For WKXX Live, these guys have you covered from preps to pros and everything in between. Now, let's go inside the Fox Sports 102.9 studio with Chase and Gerhard for WKXX Live.
Happy Friday. Welcome in. It is WKXX Live. We are getting you ready for a huge weekend in football. It starts tonight. High school playoffs. We've got a big day of college football tomorrow. The NFL on Sunday. We're going to be talking about it all over the next 90 minutes. We've typically been doing 1 hour shows through football. We're going to 3:30 today as we have a lot to talk about. And looking forward to you joining us for the next hour and a half. Coming up at 2:15, we'll talk with Jimmy Stein from Bama Insider. And we'll get his thoughts heading into Alabama LSU tomorrow. Coming up at 3 o'clock, we'll talk with Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC. And he also is out at Houston, so we'll get his thoughts on the Astros as well in the World Series. But Chris does a great job covering SEC football. So we'll talk to him about the weekend that is to come. I'm excited about, first of all, playoff football tonight, and then a big day of college football tomorrow.
Yeah, you and I both. I mean, the first round of the playoffs, normally we get some of those great games in the 2-3 matchup. So for those unfamiliar with the way that the high school football playoffs work, your top four seeds in each region make the playoffs. Your one plays your four, and your two plays your three. Now, depending on the strength of the region, there's a lot of regions out there where the strengths are between that 2 and 3 team are a lot better than the other teams 2 and 3. So those 2-3 matchups normally give us really, really compelling football. So I'm really excited to see that specifically.
Yeah, we'll give you a run through of those playoff games coming up later this hour. I want to start with the fact that we're 1 day away from Alabama at LSU. This is it's setting up to be a good game in the fact that LSU has really been improving this year since game one. Not a great game one against Florida State. Right. I mean, we can all say that. That was somewhat of a debacle on LSU's front, but they have really turned it around since. Jaden Daniels is playing good. They've had to have some comeback wins against Auburn, down 17-0. Against Ole Miss, down 17-3. They came back and won both of those games convincingly. This is a good LSU team coming in, but it's also, I think, an Alabama team who wants to prove themselves on the road after struggling in some road games.
Yeah, they struggled obviously against Texas, and then the main one against Tennessee, where they struggled in multiple categories, both in the performance, but then also in their discipline. They bounced back and got a nice win in Fayetteville on the road, but this is going to be a different road test than they've probably seen all year long. I know Austin was really tough, but nothing is Baton Rouge at night. And I know Tennessee was really tough in that 2:30 spot. But Baton Rouge at night is basically the same attendance, and these people have been partying up for about 4 hours longer than they were in the Tennessee game. So I believe that this is more interesting because of those two factors, and because now not only does the LSU fan the team thinks is playing well, the fan base now believes.
Yeah.
Had they lost those two games, it might be a different energy in the building, but I expect the energy in the building to be sky high with a top 10 team now with the Bayou Bengals.
Yeah, we got this is a top 10 matchup. Of course, Alabama sits at number 6 in the college football playoff rankings. LSU number 10. So this is setting up to be a good game tomorrow night in Baton Rouge. And you know, when you look at Alabama, it's been some discipline issues that have been struggles for Alabama.
Yeah,
quite a few penalties. At one point, I don't know if they still are, but at one point a few weeks ago, they were the most penalized college football team in the country, and that could hurt tomorrow night if you are struggling with penalties in an environment like you're going to see there in Baton Rouge.
I believe 17 penalties in the loss against Tennessee.
Yep.
Well, they bounced back really nicely in their Mississippi State game. Only 3 penalties for 20 yards there in that matchup. So if anything, it looks like the team was able to respond well to one of the things that they did not do well in the game before. Can they keep that going now after the bye week? That's the question. Can they not have those penalties because they're playing in a really, really ruthless environment?
Yeah.
Especially the offense. The offense will need to be in sync. I'm not breaking any news when I'm saying that they're probably going to go on a silent count in this game unless they have some crazy lead and the crowd takes it out of it. But I'm expecting them to be thinking, hey, we will not be able to hear each other, at the line of scrimmage. So let's go silent count here on all of our snaps. So, those pre-snap penalties are something that I'll be looking out for. And then defensively, can they make sure that they stay disciplined defensively, especially in the running game? Against Tennessee, it was in the secondary. That was their challenge, to be able to stop that passing game. I think the opposite is true here in the running game with the dual threat quarterback and Jaden Daniels.
On offense for Alabama, Jahmyr Gibbs has had no problem really running the ball. They didn't run the ball as much, against Tennessee, against Mississippi State, just because the defenses they were playing. In this game, though, they've got to be two-dimensional. They've got to get the run game going, but they've got to be – Bryce Young has got to be in step with his receivers. And, obviously we know the talent that they have at that position, but just syncing things up, being able to make some big plays, I think is going to be big. But I think Alabama's definitely got to be able to run the ball tomorrow against LSU.
Yeah, and LSU comes in. They're pretty average as far as the run defense is concerned. They give up about 140 yards per game rushing the football. And to me, I think establishing a run does two things. Number one, it imposes your will, but two, it controls the tempo. And I think that's the one thing for Alabama they want to do. Bama can play in a lot of different ways. When I say control the tempo, I don't mean it like a Tennessee situation. I mean it in more of you dictate the game on your terms. I think in a perfect situation, they would have a couple, not all the drives look like this, but a couple scoring drives that are long, methodical, double digits, 10, 11, 12, 13 plays to take that crowd out of it. And then get some monster home run plays as well. They can do both, and they can play with tempo. But using that running game, to me, like I said, it takes the crowd out of it, which I think is kind of key number one. And then can you get a special teams mistake from LSU? They've given a few of those this year, namely in their season opener against Florida State, and then in the game they lost against Tennessee. That's where the wheels fell off, was on special teams. Alabama's had some special teams blunders as well. Can they now take advantage of LSU's blunders on special teams and create some positive plays for themselves?
You mentioned Jaden Daniels, quarterback for LSU, has had a great kind of last few games and has made a name for himself there at LSU. So the Alabama defense is up against a tough task in Jaden Daniels, but they're up for it, and you think of guys like Will Anderson and Dallas Turner and even Henry